Task 4 talks about adhering to the specific codes of conduct. Task 4 has 14 qualifying criteria. Let's look at Task 4, Qualifying Criteria 10. Explain the process of advice that should be followed by a representative. We have illustrated the FSP, the representative, and the client. Here we discuss the process of giving advice that should be followed by a representative. We will be looking at Section 7 and Section 8 of the Code of Conduct. First, let's look at Section 7 of the Code of Conduct, which covers information that must be provided to the client when providing and/or giving advice. This section deals with the information that an FSP must provide the client with regards to the financial service they are rendering. When an FSP gives advice to the client, the FSP must disclose and provide certain information relating to the financial services being rendered. The FSP must inform the client of their responsibility in terms of providing accurate information. It is important to remember that the client provides the FSP with certain information in order for the FSP to provide and/or render a financial service. Therefore, it is important that the information received from the client is accurate as well. Otherwise, the FSP cannot give the correct advice or financial service. It is also important to note that an FSP may not request the client to sign any written or printed documents unless all the required information has been included or sign a blank document. So here we can see that this sets up the relationship between the parties. The client must give accurate information, and the FSP cannot ask the client to sign anything unless the FSP has provided all the required information per Section 7. The FSP must, at the request of the client, provide a statement of account in connection with the financial service rendered to the client. The FSP must provide a client with a statement of identifying and listing financial products still in existence at least annually. These statements must include specific information. We will explore this information a bit later. Let's start with: when the FSP gives advice to the client, they must provide certain information relating to the rendering of the financial service provider. We can divide this information into 3 categories. 1. General explanations. 2. Material information. 3. Specific disclosure. In terms of general explanations, the FSP is to provide the client with reasonable and appropriate general explanations of the nature and material terms of the contract and the transaction. The FSP is to provide full, frank, and honest disclosure of information that is reasonably expected to be disclosed to enable the client to make an informed decision. In terms of material information, the FSP is to provide the client with material contractual information, facts, illustrations, projections, or forecasts that they have. In terms of specific disclosure, Section 7 of the Code of Conduct goes into detail as to what needs to be disclosed. Section 7, paragraph 1c states, the following information must be disclosed at the earliest reasonable opportunity and time. 1. The name, class, or type of financial product. 2. The benefits of the financial product and how they are calculated, accrued, and paid out. 3. the specific information for financial products marked as an investment product or has an investment component. 4. The obligation to the product provider, nature, extent and frequency of monetary obligation and escalation, increases or additions. 5. The obligation to the FSP, nature, extent and frequency of monetary obligation. 6. Any special terms and/or exclusions. 7. Any guaranteed minimum benefits. 8. How accessible will the funds be? 9. Any early termination consequences. 10. Tax implications. 11. The cooling off period. 12. The nature, extent and frequency of payment of commission, fees and/or brokerage fees. 13. Any and all risks associated with the product. 14. The amount of the increase in premiums over the first 5 years, then the basis of the increase over years 6 to 20 years, not exceeding 20 years. Section 7, paragraph 1c, subsection 3 states that specific information for financial products marked as an investment product or has an investment component needs to be provided and disclosed. Therefore, when a financial product has an element of an investment, then there is additional disclosure requirements that need to be provided to the client about the financial product. Let's go through these disclosures. Firstly, the fees being levied in terms of 1. The amount and frequency of the fees. 2. Who receives the fees. 3. The services or purpose of the fees. 4. Fees based on performance. Then we must include the frequency, performance measure period, and/or other criteria. And 5. Where the structure of the investment has other underlying financial products, then we must include the manner in which the client can determine the net value of the investment. Next, we need to disclose how the value of the investment is calculated and the details of the underlying of other financial instruments. We need to disclose the details on the past performance of the investment as well. 1. On request of client. 2. Over intervals that are reasonable for type of product. And 3. Include a warning that past performance is not an indicator of future performance. We also need to disclose the details of any rebate on fees passed on to the client. Lastly, any platform fees that are being charged to the client. So now we have covered all the elements relating to when the FSP gives advice to the client. What information the FSP must provide or disclose when rendering the financial service. In terms of specific disclosure, Section 7 of the Code of Conduct goes into detail as to what needs to be disclosed. We will now cover facts that the FSP must tell and inform the client of the client's, responsibility in terms of providing accurate information. It is the client's responsibility to ensure all facts disclosed are accurate and complete. Any information completed and submitted by the FSP, the client must ensure it's accurate and complete. The FSP must inform the client of possible consequences of misrepresentation or non-disclosure. Simply put, the results of giving incorrect and incomplete information. The FSP must supply the client, on request, a copy or record of any transaction requirements within reasonable time. So we have seen that the client needs to ensure that they provide the FSP with accurate information and that any information that is used by the FSP is accurate, because any misrepresentation or non-disclosure could have an adverse effect on the advice given and or provided. Next, we cover the fact that an FSP must provide a client with a statement of identifying, listing, and mentioning products that are still in existence at least annually. These statements must include specific information. This specific information is obligations, the ongoing monetary obligations of the client. Benefits, the main benefits provided by the product. Value of the investment, if any. Where a product has been identified as an investment or has an investment component, then the net value of that investment to the client must be disclosed. Commissions and fees. Any ongoing incentives, commissions, fees, and brokerage fees payable to the provider must be disclosed. This statement need not be provided where the client is aware or should be aware that the FSP does not render or has stopped rendering ongoing financial services in respect of the products concerned. We have now covered all of Section 7, dealing with the information that the FSP must provide the client with regards to the rendering of the financial service. Note that this section is long with a lot of details, so make sure you go through it and understand all the requirements laid out. Let's look at Section 8 of the Code of Conduct, which covers what must be done before furnishing and or giving advice to a client. Before giving advice to a client, an FSP must take steps to get from the client all available information about the client's situation, financial product experience, and objectives to enable the FSP to provide the client with appropriate advice. The FSP must then conduct a financial needs analysis, F&A for short, based on this information provided by the client in order to give advice. From this analysis, the FSP will identify the financial products that will be appropriate and suitable based on the client's risk profile and their financial needs. This will, however, be subject to any limitations by the Act or existing contracts. Once the FSP has identified financial products, the FSP must then take steps to determine if the financial products identified wholly or partially replaces an existing financial product or products held by the client. Take note that when existing financial products are to be replaced by new financial products, there is some disclosure that needs to be made. So, as mentioned earlier, where the financial product or products held by a client is replaced, wholly or partially, the FSP should fully disclose the actual and potential financial implications relating to costs and consequences of such a replacement, including, where possible, the following: difference in fees and charges between the products, special terms and conditions which may be applicable to the replacement product as compared to the terminated product. Examples of these special terms and conditions may be exclusions of liability, waiting periods, loadings, penalties, excesses, restrictions, and circumstances where benefits won't be provided. Impact of age and health changes on the premium to be paid. Difference in tax implication. Material differences between the investment risk of the replacement product and the terminated product. Penalties or unrecovered expenses deductible or payable due to termination of product. To what extent the replacement product is readily realizable or relevant funds are accessible compared to the terminated product. Vesting rights, minimum guaranteed benefits or other guarantees or benefits that will be lost as a result or consequence of the replacement product. Any incentives, remuneration, consideration, fees received directly or indirectly by the FSP in relation to the financial services offered for either or both the terminated and/or replacement products. The FSP must take reasonable steps to ensure that the client understands the advice given and is in a position to make an informed decision. This is very important. Where an FSP provides and gives advice to replace an existing long-term insurance contract, agreement, or a policy with another financial product, the FSP must notify the product supplier of the existing and the replacement long-term insurance contract, agreement, or policy of such advice. It is important to note that this notice must be made after the advice was given, but before replacement contract, agreement, or policy document has been submitted by the FSP. Where the client has not provided and/or disclosed all the necessary information to the FSP, or the FSP has not had sufficient time to conduct a complete financial needs analysis. The FSP should inform and notify the client and ensure the client fully understands that a full analysis could not be performed. There may be limitations on the appropriateness of the advice provided. The client should take care to consider whether the advice is appropriate, considering the client's objectives, financial situation, and particular needs. Where the client chooses to elect a transaction or financial product different from the one recommended by the FSP, or elects not to follow and/or take the advice of the FSP, or wants more information than what the FSP can provide. The FSP must notify the client of the risks and advise the client to take care that when selecting or choosing any product that he or she consider his or her needs, objectives, and circumstances. That concludes Section 8 of the Code of Conduct, covering the process that the FSP must follow when furnishing or giving advice to a client. We will have a look at some questions to test your understanding of the material you have just learned. Question 1. What should Saki tell his client about the FSP when rendering a financial service? Choose the incorrect statement. A. Registration number. B. Criticize or make claims regarding any financial products, suppliers, FSPs or representatives. C. Full business and trade names. D. Name and contact details of the relevant compliance and complaints departments. Pause the video here and read the question again. Remember, we are looking for the incorrect statement. So what would Saki not tell, inform, or disclose to his client? And the answer is option B. Saki should not criticize or make claims regarding any financial products, suppliers, FSPs, or representatives. Often you see people do this in society when they tell you why this company is not good and why this product is not good, because they want to sell you their product. When a representative is providing and rendering financial service, they need to make sure they are doing what's best for the client and not what's best for themselves or their own pocket. Question 2. In order for Zama, a representative, to determine her client's requirements, she would have to conduct a financial needs analysis for her client. This would include specific information that Zama would need to get from the client. Which statement is false and is not required? A. How much the client earns, total income. B. How much of his income is available for savings and investment purposes. C. What type of transactions the client needs to carry out and how many per month. D. What the client intends to do with the funds. Pause the video here and take a minute to read through the question and consider the options. Remember, you are looking for what Zama does not need to know from the client. The answer is option D. Zama does not need to know what the client intends to do with the funds in order to make or do a needs analysis. Question 3. Mohau wants to purchase shares. Mohau only has a grade 10 education and is a retired pensioner with little to no understanding of financial investments. Mohau approaches Musa, an investment advisor at Caputech, to assist him in purchasing shares. Mohau wishes to invest a sum of 10,000 Rand and seeks a stable, non-volatile share option to invest in. Choose the correct options below. 1. Musa must provide Mohau with a detailed written analysis of the various share options available for purchase. Musa has a duty to point out opportunities to purchase hedge fund instruments, swaps, etc. 2. Musa must establish Mohau's financial situation and financial experience. 3. Musa is correct in recommending highly volatile oil shares, as her advice is that Mohau will make loads of money quickly, as his 10,000 Rand will not get him far. 4. Musa must choose and or recommend a product which is suited to Mohau's financial situation and risk profile. Choose between option A, B, C, and D. Pause the video here for a few minutes and read through the question and options provided before answering the question. The answer is option D, being statement 2 and 4. Statements 1 and 3 are not correct because Musa should be considering that Mohau is retired and not educated in financial investing, and therefore it would not be appropriate to provide Mohau with such risky options. So let's go through a final overview of what has been covered. We looked at the information the FSP and or representative must provide and disclose to the client when giving advice. We hope you enjoyed the video and learnt a lot. Please make sure to check out our other RE videos.